I realize no one remembers all the sermon, but they'll remember statements. So when we do the series, if we continue to work in the series, they'll get the statement, and the statement will connect them to what's being said, and they'll be able to get that. Amen. So last week we started in our series of authenticity, right? Authentic is the series. And this week is week 2, authentic, and with authentic belief. Authentic belief. And we've been speaking on belief systems. Pretty much the thrust of our last series and this series has been belief systems. What we don't realize is our life causes us to develop certain belief systems. Mm-hmm. Our experiences, our victories, our losses, our ups and our downs, we develop a belief system in our life. Mm-hmm. And then when we come to God, people start talking all these great things, and they start speaking about God, and it's like, okay, so we take our belief system and we want to try to throw it on top of God's word. When God says, no, you need to put my word over your belief system.
Yeah. Yes.
And so when we use our belief system and then try to manufacture things the way we want it to be manufactured based on the way we live, and we'll come and say, you said this is going to happen. God said, yeah, I said it was going to happen. But there's a bunch of other things in here that coincide. Yeah. Your belief system doesn't match that. Mm-hmm. So we had spoken on how when we develop a belief system that controls our emotions controls our behavior controls our thoughts, mm-hmm. which gives us our results. Mm-hmm. And if our emotions is bad, and our behavior is bad, our thoughts go bad, and our results come out bad. Yes. But we don't recognize that because we're calling on God, and God is good, and we understand God, but we're still working in our belief system, and it's getting bad results. Mm-hmm. And we get mad at God, thinking that God's supposed to give these results, and God said, no, I can give the results based on if you put my word over everything.
Right.
And so, in this authentic belief, the reason I love this passage is because it's really true, and it's one of those moments of one thing you don't hear a lot of in church. And so, Mark chapter 9, verse 14 is where we'll start. I like to try to make the reading short, but sometimes it's impossible. So, I start at verse 14, say faith when you have it. I say turn. I know people have devices. You can look up on your device. I'm not anti-device. Go ahead and tap your Bible. If you never used it before, the U version is a good version to download on your phone and pull in Mark chapter 9. So I'll read. It says, and I'll set it up. Basically what happens is, Jesus is with the disciples. Jesus runs with 12 disciples, but anytime it gets down to the nitty-gritty, he uses Peter, James, and John. Mm-hmm. Peter, James, and John. So what happens is he goes to the Mount of Transfiguration, and they call it the Mount of Transfiguration because this is where Jesus, in his normal state, goes up to the mountain with Peter, James, and John, and God, the light of God basically appears. You got Moses, and you got Moses and Elijah. And so Moses and Elijah is on the Mount of Transfiguration, and pretty much what people don't really realize is this is almost like a deal. Almost like saying, okay, Moses is the law for what we know in the Bible, the 10 Commandments, the law. Moses developed that. The people lived according to the law. Then the prophets came, and the prophets prophesied about the Messiah that would come. They prophesied about the way that people were supposed to live. So now when Jesus goes up to this mountain with Peter, James, and John, and now this light appears, and it's Moses, the law, Elijah, the prophets. The law showed us what was bad. It showed us what God didn't like. And now the prophets is talking about the one that was coming to save us, the one that was coming to rescue us. And now Jesus, the one that's here, is there. So basically what he's saying is, good deal. You did a good job. Good job, Moses, laying the law. Good job, Elijah, the prophet of all prophets, prophesying, showing the miracles of God. Your job is done. Now I'll take over. That's what people don't realize. And I won't get sidetracked. You got all these other religions that go into things. But this moment here shows that your deals are closed. Those moments are closed. Now I take over and I move forward. And then showing it to Peter, James, and John. So now what he does, he comes down off this mountain right where we're about to read. And when he comes down, this is what's happening right now. It says, and when he had came to the disciples, he saw a great multitude around them, and scribes disputing with them. Immediately when they saw him, all the people were greatly amazed and running to him, greeting him. And he asked the scribes, now the scribes didn't like Jesus, they didn't like his people either, right? It said, so he asked the scribes, what are you discussing with them? Then one of the crowd answered and said, teacher, I brought you my son who has a mute spirit, and whatever it seizes him, it throws him down. He foams at the mouth, he gashes his teeth, and becomes rigid. So I spoke to your disciples that they should cast it out, but they could not. Remember that. He answered and said, O faithless generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I bear with you? Bring him to me. So Jesus like, bring me the boy, right? And so verse 20 says, then he brought him to him. He brought him to him, and when he saw him, immediately the spirit convulsed him, and he fell on the ground and wallowed, foaming at his mouth. So he asked the father, how long has this been happening to him? And he said to him, from childhood. And often he has thrown him both into the fire and into the water to destroy him. But if you can do anything, have compassion on us and help us. Jesus said, if you can, believe all things are possible to him who believes. Immediately the father of the child cried out and said with tears, Lord, this is what I want you to remember. He says this, Lord, I believe, help my unbelief. Help my unbelief. I believe, help my unbelief. Amen. May the Lord bless you in the hearing of his word. I want to speak to us about authentic belief. I want to speak to us about authentic faith. Because in this Christian walk, a lot of times it's passed down and we try to take on somebody else's faith. My grandmother was a big staple in my life, but I got to a point where grandma's word wasn't going to take me no more. I had to get my own. Grandma's revelation wasn't going to take me no more. I had to get my own. And my grandma, y'all know the stories. My grandma, I used to be a part of a party crew in high school. So we threw parties. And then most of our parties, the best successful ones was on Saturday night. Right? So Sunday morning comes around. And every time Sunday morning came around, it just happened that my grandmother knew where I was at. And so she hung the horn. This is before cell phones, you know. You couldn't, if she hung the horn, she'd come knock on the door. And then my boys would be asleep. They'd be like, Tahan, your grandma outside. So then I'd get up, tired, hungover, going to the car, knowing I got to go to church. And she'd stand in the doorway and be like, y'all need to be coming too. And we would go through this process. I didn't think anything was sinking in, but hence now I'm standing here, right? But her faith got me up to the point, meaning that it's just like when you're trying to date somebody, you know, somebody like, hook me up. Hook me up. I like her. And they be like, all right, man, I'm trying to hook you up. All I can do is introduce you to her, right? So now you introduce the two people that come together through the introduction, and you stand there looking dumb. And it's like, man, I introduced you to him, and I can't do nothing else. Or I introduce you to him, now you have to take it from here. That's what the parents' job is. That's what the grandparents' job is, to cause us to have the introduction, but we have to take it from there. Amen. And so when we take it from there, we now start developing our own stories. We now start developing our own faith, because I can't say you said, I can't say you told me. Yeah, I told you, but I told you because I developed that on my own. Now it's time for you to develop it on your own. If a kid is 10 years old and perfectly healthy, no disability or anything, perfectly healthy, and they still crawl on the floor, that's a problem. If they still crawling, and it's like, you been to the doctor? Yeah, they say he's perfectly fine. Nothing's wrong with him. Brain works well, muscles work well. He just refuses to walk. What's the problem? Somebody got to get him and say, man, if you don't stand up, and a lot of times in this walk, we, in our faith, we want to keep crawling when God says it's time to start walking. In this situation, I've been blessed to witness, you know, the healing of my mother, who actually has epilepsy, or had it. She hasn't had a seizure episode in how long, Mom?
About 5 years.
About 5 years? About 5 years. Right? And in between that, there's big gaps in between there. But I grew up with someone who had epilepsy. So when you read this and it talks about this, when you research, it's really epilepsy like the young boy has. The thing that's funny is when you try to hold on to something of faith and you believe in something of faith, the enemy always wants to act out.
Yeah.
So Jesus comes down the hill. Great moment, comes down the hill, and the scribes are arguing with the disciples. The disciples are feeling defeated because they could not cast the demon out. I don't know about us, there's been many moments in our lives where we felt defeated because it did not happen the way we believe, it did not happen the way we trust, it did not happen the way we were pushing for it, and we feel defeated. And then that defeat, if we draw back, that's the wrong time to draw back, it's the time to draw forward. Yes. And if we draw forward, Jesus shows up. So Jesus now shows up. I'll let you know a secret. This dad is bringing his son, who's been dealing with this issue for years. He's probably went to every physician. He's probably spent all his money. He's probably tried all the medications they had at the time, and nothing has happened. And now he hears about Jesus and his crew. Jesus and his crew. Jesus and his crew. He now hears about Jesus and his crew, about what they can do. So when he brings them to the disciples and they cannot cast the demon out, it causes his unbelief. A lot of times our unbelief and our lack of faith is not happening based on us. It's when we're looking at the wrong people and we see they don't get results, we start losing hope. It's like, if he can't do it, then I know I can't do it. But God has made all of us individuals, and God has made us to have a personal relationship with him and says, look, I know that he may not be able to do it, I know she may not be able to do it, but for me, I'm the exception. We're going to be able to do it for me. And that's how you got to believe. But when he brings his son, now I believe he believes. But now they are able to cast it out, and now unbelief sinks in. The thing about Jesus is he's calm, cool, and collected. Jesus comes down, he's irritated because the scribes is yelling at his people. They're contesting him. The guy says, Jesus said, he said, I want you to heal my son. When he says that, the son falls down and starts to have a seizure. Jesus isn't moved by the reaction. Look at it. He's not moved by the reaction. He falls down, he has a seizure. I don't know about you. If somebody falls down and have a seizure in here, everybody gonna be like, wait a minute. Or somebody that knows the dude's gonna come to their rescue. And so when he falls down and have a seizure, Jesus is not even paying attention. He's like, how long he been like this? Everybody else is like, wait. Running around. He's like, how long he been like this? You gotta have how long he been like this faith. When you've been believing for something, you've been trusting God for something, when you've been pushing for things, and you've been trusting to say, I know that my parents, my mom gonna get healed, I know my brother gonna get healed, I know my marriage is gonna do well, I know my health is gonna do well, I know my job is gonna do well, I know I'm gonna recover from this, I know, and you believe that. And when it's still acting up and not showing what you're trusting and believing, you gotta have faith and stand strong to say, how long? I'm gonna be like this because I see what's happening, but I know I trust in the one that can now save me from this. I trust in the one that now can transform this. So Jesus is not moved by that. But we have to be honest with the unbelief that seeps into our heart. I look at none of this on this pad. Hold on. And we have to be honest with the unbelief that seeps into our heart, because it does. And the Bible tells us in Hebrews that without faith it's impossible to please God. Amen. Without faith, it's impossible to please God. You have to have faith to even recognize God. You have to have faith to even trust God. You have to have faith to even have a relationship. It tells us this. So we have to have faith. It's impossible to please God. But then it tells us what faith is. It tells us that faith is the evidence of things hoped for, some of things not seen, right? So basically, substance is this chair. I can sit on this chair. I don't have to have faith to sit on this chair, but I trust it will hold me. I'm not small. Right? All you guys show faith every day when you get to your car and go to your place of work. Yeah. Every day when your kids go to school, you show faith every day. But when it comes time to show faith in God and believe him, it becomes more difficult. Why? Because you think you have control, but you really don't. Yeah. And to put faith in God is to admit I have no control. To put faith in God is to admit I can't transform this. To put faith in God is to admit that I have to trust God to make this happen for me. And that's one of the hardest things when you want to have control. But control is an illusion. No one in this room has control over anything. You got control of your car on the street, but you ain't got control of none of the other cars on the street. So you got to trust in faith that you'll get to your destination and someone will not crash. You got to trust that God will raise your children, but you're doing your best to raise your children, but you still don't know what decision they will make when they get older. You got to put your trust and faith in God. Hence, this father has a son that he feels hopeless, that he can't do anything for. Medication don't work. Doctors don't work. Situations just not working. He says, I got to go to God and have God help this situation. But before he gets to God, he gets to God's people. When if God's people don't respond the way God responds, people say unbelieving. God's people, his disciples, have to respond the way God responds to things. If we don't respond the way God responds, people start walking away still with no faith in their lives. Because they don't know God personally. They know God just through you. And when you start all funky, when you start acting like you better, when you start acting when you start going to your trips, they be like, oh, this God ain't real. Wow. But God is real. But God has put agents in this earth to represent him, and you are an agent that will cause change to represent him. So yes, you may get upset sometimes. You're normal. Yes, you may get unbelief sometimes. You're normal. But you have to be able to address that unbelief. You have to be able to address those situations and say, I got to shake out of this. Because my God has charged me to do something. I got to shake out of this because my God has picked me to be an example for the rest. I'm not saying things won't come down your road. I'm not saying hurt won't come down your road. I'm not saying disappointment won't come down your road. But you are the exception to the rule. Jesus walked on water. Peter was in the boat with the rest of the 11 disciples. When Jesus is walking on the water, Peter says, is that you? He says, yes. He says, if it's you, allow me to come out. So he comes out and he starts walking on the water. He didn't let the rest of the 11 try to jump out there. They're like, hey, man, don't nobody walk on water. So he didn't let the rest of the 11 hold him back. He was the exception. Even though he got out there and he sank, he still stepped out on faith. And while he stepped out on faith and kept his eyes on Jesus, he did not sink. When he started taking a glimpse of the elements, it says when the wind and the waves is roaring, he started looking at that and really started realizing, like, I'm out here now. He started sinking. But it tells us, soon he sank. Jesus reached his hand out. So that tells me that he was that close that he would have got to Jesus. But when he started paying attention to all the other elements, he started to sink. But Jesus just reached his hand out and pulled him back up. Sometimes you're going to have faith to walk on water. And if you start sinking, you still got to have faith that Jesus is going to pull you up out. Some people are so focused on the sinking that they're afraid that they're not focused on the one that will pull you out. But he's telling you to step out on faith. He's telling you to come walk on the water. He says you're the exception to the rule. Let your belief system trust in me. And now when you step out on the water, if you start to sink because you're trusting in me, I will pull you up and I'll keep strengthening you. The next time you walk out on the water, you're going to walk a little further. Next time you're going to walk a little further. Understand that faith is a gift given by God. So you're able to pray for more faith. God gives the faith. God gives the faith. He increases the faith. You can pray, but you got to have faith to pray. You got to initiate the faith relationship. You got to initiate the relationship. If I'm in a relationship with somebody and we don't talk to each other, like I always say, ain't talked to each other in 5 months, ain't called, ain't went on no date, be like, yeah, that's my girl, man. They be like, what? I don't ever see you with her. What you talking about? Now we together. When the last time you talked to her? Right. It's the same thing with God. God is a personal God. He's not fire and brimstone. Fire and brimstone is an element that we were raised in because it kept us from going crazy. But God's compassion side is Jesus. And he gave us Jesus because he knew he couldn't deal with us one-on-one like that. Because he was going to be fire and brimstone. But he said, listen, I have to give you my son and spread this blood over you because when I look at you, I see my son, and now I can deal. Thank you. Thank you, Father. So you can pray for more faith. But there's something about atmosphere. I told you, I used to be a part of a party crew growing up, and it was always about the atmosphere. You had to make sure that the right music was rolling. You had to make sure that the right people was going to be there. You had to make sure that the wrong people was going to be there. We want to make sure this thing don't get shot up tonight. So we want to make sure, you have to make sure all these things. But at the atmosphere, you know how you step in somewhere and you can tell the atmosphere changes? You walk into a place, you can be smiling. And be like, I'm going over to so-and-so house. You walk in and be like, this mood over here. Maybe I need to leave. Maybe I need to go somewhere. The atmosphere has changed. Yeah. You ever been in an atmosphere, you walk in somewhere and you get creeped out? Like, something creepy up in here. You walk to that, and it's something about atmosphere. Guess what? Atmosphere will be able to dictate your faith and dictate your unbelief. If you hang around a bunch of people that doubt the things of God, if you hang around a bunch of people that's not going to encourage you in the things of God, if you hang around a bunch of people that's going to keep you down in the things of God, it's time for you to go ahead and switch seats and go sit somewhere else and say, I love you. You know you're my mama, you know you're my daddy, you know you're my grandma, you're my sister, you're my brother. I love you, but I can't have this conversation with you because every time I have this conversation with you and I believe in God for something, you want to tear me down. Yeah, that's right. So you got to go ahead and switch seats. And you switch seats with somebody that says, yeah, oh no, God can do it. I know they said the doctor said there's no God can do it. I know the job said there's no, but God can do it. I know the situation said this, but God can do it. And guess what? You start getting stronger. You start getting stronger, and your faith gets more. And now when you see God do it, Side note, I hate doing side notes, but I really love it. It's this artist, Willie Moore Jr. He's a Christian artist. And Willie tells this story about how he was called to go down to Atlanta to do something, and he didn't have no money, he didn't know how it was going to happen, but he knew that he had to go down there. So he goes down there, the pastor calls him down there, he does his singing and shares his testimony, because he had started getting notoriety through his social media. And it was just him and his son. So now, he was waiting to get back, but didn't have money to get back home. And he was about to get back home, and he said, God told him, I need to stay here in Atlanta longer. And he said he was telling his son this. He said, I don't know, son, but we're supposed to stay here a little bit longer. And his son is like young, like, what? No, we're supposed to stay here a little bit longer. Something's about to happen, right? And so, as he's staying, the bishop calls him back and says, we want you to do 2 more dates here. So when he goes back to do 2 more dates here, the money he didn't have, they bless him with a nice sized offering that he can get back home and he has money in his pocket. Because the story is, the reason he was pulled off was his social media part blew up, but they didn't know his camera he used was sitting on boxes of a house he was getting evicted out of at the same time. So now, when he does the 2 more shows, the bishop blesses him with a bunch of money. Now he has a way of getting back home. Now, and he's riding with his son, and he says, see, son, I told you God was going to do it. Yeah. So soon he gets home with his son runs up in a room, and he says, Mom, Dad hears from God. I say this because you have people watching you. You have people trusting your word. You have people leaning on your word. You have people leaning on your instructions. And when they don't have faith, your faith is the only faith they can hold on to. So you got to hold on to your faith. You got to trust and believe, because they'll say, guess what? Angie hears from God. Guess what? Cecily hears from God. Guess what? Samaj hears from God. Because what you don't understand is, when we're standing in firm and believing God, sometimes it's shaky to us. You're like, man, this don't add up. But I'm going to trust God. And then when God shows up, evidence shows up. Evidence shows up. Faith is not, you can write this down, faith is not based on your physical eyes. It's based on your spiritual eyes. It's not based on what you can see. It's based on what you can see in your spirit. It's based on what God is putting in you can trust and move forward. So if the doctor's report is bad, my physical eye tells me it's bad, but I'm going to have faith to believe God can do it. And guess what? If God doesn't do it, I still get rewarded because I have faith. I die going on the glory. See, that's real faith. I always tell you, faith is not in denial that the situation isn't real. Faith is sending a message to the real situation. Saying, oh, you say I'm sick? Because a lot of times we talk, I'm not going to receive that. No, you don't receive it. But the reality is it is cancer. The reality is it is high blood pressure. The reality is it is something in front of you. And you now have an opportunity to put God all over. But if you act like you're going to walk away and act like it's not there and don't do the things that's required and act like it's not there, no, it's a time to say, guess what? I'm serving notice that my God is bigger than this. I'm serving notice that my God is greater than this. I'm serving notice that when I come back down, I'm trusting in better results. So when you come back, you look, the results look the same. You go back, you look, the results look the same. You go back, you look, the results look the same. You go back, you look, the results start to look different. Come on now. The results start to look different. And now the doctors, I said this last week, then the doctors complex. Like, okay, so you've been taking the medication? No, I haven't been taking that. I've been trusting God. So it's not based on your physical eyes. So now, when he comes back and say, you know what? I don't know how this happened. You're completely healed. And you say, I know how it happened. Your faith gets stronger. Your faith gets stronger. Ask God to remove our doubts. Ask God to remove our doubts. Because doubts are there. Don't ever think you're going wrong when you're doubting. And I'm almost out of here, TJ, so you can start playing. Don't ever think you go wrong because doubt comes in. It's a part of your life. Satan has a job to perform. Just like you have a job to perform. He has to put fear in your heart. Because if he knows, if you recognize who you really are in God, you become a problem for him. It's like if they really get it, it becomes a problem. If they really get it, things start to change in their lives. If they really get it, their vision starts to become clearer and their faith gets stronger. And I don't have the influence that I used to be able to have over them. God is in control of it all. Sometimes we can pray for things and it doesn't happen the way we want. But one principle I always tell you this: God is intentional. He's a God of intentionality. And what does that mean? When God is doing something, he's moving. When he's not doing something, he's still moving. When he's stalled, then something's happening. He's always working something, and he's working something on your behalf. He's working something for your good. So right here at verse 25. 24, the guy says, I believe, but help my unbelief. At 25, Jesus said, it says, when Jesus saw that the people came running together, he rebuked the unclean spirit, saying to it, deaf and mute spirit, I command you, come out of him and enter him no more. Then the spirit cried and convulsed him greatly and came out of him. And he became as one dead, so that many said, he is dead. But Jesus took him by the hand and lifted him up, and he arose. I come to let you know right now, when you stand firm and believe something, the enemy's going to make it seem like it's not going to happen. He's going to make it seem like it's falling apart. He's going to make it seem like there's somebody here that has given up on something. There's somebody here that has said, oh, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I'm done with it. And they lost faith in that. And the way we trick ourselves, we lost faith, but we try to find faith in something else. But God says, I never told you to move off that spot, son. I never told you to move off that spot, daughter. You moved off to make yourself feel better because you didn't like that uncomfortable state that you was in. But God says, I work in the uncomfortable. I'm not here to make you comfortable. I'm here to get you comfortable and being uncomfortable and trusting me all the way. So now, the thing that was dead, and everybody else around him said it was dead. Everybody else around him said it was over. Everybody else around him said, oh, you might as well close the castle on that. It's already done. But Jesus just rebuked the spirit out already. Jesus just came through already. And now everybody else is saying no. But you're trusting and saying, no, I know God has just moved. I know God has just moved. So God says, he stretched out your hand and he pulled it up and he rolls it up. And I ask you right now, what's the boy in your life? What's the boy in your life that you've given up on? What's the boy in your life that looks dead? What's the boy in your life that's laid out? What's the boy in your life that's down on the ground? And Jesus is standing there with his hand. He said, just lift your hand up. Lift your hand up and I can pick you up and I can raise you up right now in the name of Jesus. What's the boy in your life? You've been laboring. You've been trusting God. You've been believing God. And it seems like nothing's happening. The people are praying for you. And it seems like nothing's happening. Your mama talked to you on the phone. And it seems like nothing happened. Your sister talked to you on the phone. And it seems like nothing's happening. Your daddy, your pastor, everyone's saying, just keep trusting. Just keep trusting. And you're like, I'm tired of trusting. I'm ready to give up. I'm ready to throw in the towel. But God said, if you just keep trusting, right at your breaking point is when I step in. Right at your breaking point is when I come and I reach my hand. But you got to open your eyes and see that my hand is there. And if you reach your hand up to me, I will raise you up out of the situation. I will raise you out of the depression. I will raise you out of the addiction. I will raise you out of the abusive relationship. I will raise you out of the suicidal mindset. I will raise you up out of that. What's the boy in your life? Jesus says, bring me the boy. Bring me the situation. Bring it to me. Because medication won't take care of it, it just masks it. Therapy is only temporary if you don't give the true therapist an opportunity. We search and we search and we search to be complete in everything else, but God says I'm the only one that can complete everything. Relationships doesn't complete it. People don't complete it. Only God completes it. And when you trust God and you walk in his favor, God will put people around you that will help you be complete. Not because of them, but because of God in them and the God in you, and it comes together, and now you start feeling complete. Trust is a tough thing in life when those that you trust can betray you. Family members hurt you when it wasn't supposed to. Relationships hurt you. Jobs let you down. People let you down and you trusted them. But God says people let you down 95% of the time, but I'll let you down none of the time. Come on and trust in him. Don't go by what it looks like. Go by what your spirit says inside of you. And if your spirit is not lining up with the word of God, it's time to recalibrate and line yourself up with the word of God. Because your belief system is getting in the way of what God is trying to tell you. Your belief system says it's time to retreat When God says no, it's no time to retreat, it's time to stand. Your belief system says it's time to cut them off. When God says no, it's time to give them another chance of working on their heart. Your belief system says it's time for me to fight, and God says no, it's time for you to pray. That's what your belief system is doing. It's challenging. But if we stand on the word of God and God's word alone, and understand that God is the true authority, and understand that Jesus Christ is the word of God, then we'll be okay. So give him the boy, the one you've been laboring with, the one that's caused unbelief in your life. Whatever that situation is, give it to him, and he can transform it. Come on, stand to your feet, give God a hand of praise. Hallelujah. Come on, stand to your feet, everybody.